Hello learners, I'm teacher Elmeldha from Greenview Schools Kamulu. I'll be taking you through social studies, grade 8. We are going to look at the types of migration in Africa, and we will first define what is migration. Migration is the movement from one place to another. You have seen people moving from places to places, from one area to another. That is what we refer to as migration. There are various types of migration that takes place in Africa, and they include migration, rural to urban migration, rural to rural migration, urban to urban migration, urban to rural migration, and immigration. Today's lesson, we are going to define these types of migration and the factors that influence the particular migration. We start with emigration. Emigration involves the movement of people out of a country. For example, we are people in Kenya, and some of us might decide to move to another country, and this might be because of various reasons. Probably because of education. You have heard stories of people who have scholarships and they move to other countries to pursue their education. You have heard of people who have jobs in Dubai, in Ethiopia, in other countries, and this is because they desire to have a higher income from what they used to earn in Kenya. War can also be a reason why people would move out of a country. For example, in Kenya, there was the post-election violence in 2007, and some people were forced to move out of Kenya to other countries to seek refuge and to seek a place where there is peace, and that movement is known as emigration. There is also a desire to live a more comfortable life that would push you to move from the country you live, your home country, to another country. The next type of migration we're going to look at is the rural to urban migration, and it involves the movement of people from rural areas to urban areas. This is mostly the internal migration, whereby people will move from where mostly the places of birth to go to the town centers because of better living conditions, employment, availability of good infrastructure, availability of learning institution, and even better social services. We have had situations whereby people move from rural areas to the urban centers because they have got jobs, and so they are forced to migrate. I don't know whether learners you have ever questioned why your home area or where your grandparents are is not the same place as some of your parents are. This is because they moved from where they were born, which is mostly the rural areas, and then they went to the urban areas, probably where you live right now, probably because there is better living conditions, there is also employment. Also in urban areas, there is the learning institutions that is available, which is better than the rural areas. The next migration we are going to look at is the rural to rural migration. We have instances where people move from one rural area to another rural area. And this is because of probably natural disasters that happen to force people to move. For example, the floods that we have been experiencing that forces people to move from one area to another. Employment also, you might get a job from a different rural area that forces you to move. Land transfer, whereby you decide to sell the land you are in and go and buy another land, but it's still in the rural areas. And also the settlement of landless people. Next type of migration is the urban to urban migration. For example, in Kenya, there is a movement of people from the urban areas and to urban areas. For example, one might decide to move from the Nairobi city to the Kisumu city. Those, as I've said, are cities. And so that movement might be because of job transfers. We have instances where people work for specific companies and they are told to go to another branch or to another institution to work there with the same kind of position. Change of jobs and also business opportunities forces or makes people to move to urban areas from another different urban areas. We have the urban to rural migration as another type of migration, which involves the movement of people from urban centers to rural areas. Mostly this is instances where one might retire from their employment. One might also have experienced the high cost of living in the urban areas, forcing them to move to the rural areas as they cannot keep up with the cost of living that is taking place. Insecurity. Urban areas, we know that has a lot of people, and some places or some instances, the security might not be as a priority as in the rural areas. Overcrowding in towns, because most people prefer to be in the towns rather than in the rural areas, and so a lot of people will mean that you'll have even the shortage of resources and might make people uncomfortable, forcing them to move back to the rural areas, and also loss of employment. If you're not working in the urban areas, you won't keep up with the cost of living, you won't be able to pay your bills, and so you're forced to move back to the rural areas. Lastly, we have the immigration, which involves the movement of people into a new country. You have seen instances in Kenya where it's not only Kenyans who live here, we have other people who have come into our country, and even some have become citizens. This is might be as a result of civil wars in their home countries, which force them to move and come to our country, or come to a country that is different from their own. Employment opportunities, and even back then, when we faced the colonization, people were moved by the colonizers, or the colonizers as well moved from their home countries to a new country. And that is the immigration type of migration. Some of you might wonder, what is the difference between immigration and emigration? As I've said, im, from the first letter, in. So it is into a new country from where you are from. Well, emigration, from the first letter, is external, is the moving out of a particular country. That is the difference between emigration and immigration. For example, in immigration, we have people from outside Kenya who come and stay in Kenya. We have various people, Chinese, Indians, the Sudanese, all these people who come and stay with us in Kenya and even follow the Kenyan rules and constitutions and cultures. That is immigration. Whereas emigration, where when you decide that you do no longer want to be in Kenya and decide to go to another country, and you follow the cultures and customs of that country, then you will have considered yourself having taken the emigration type of migration, because you have moved from your home country to another country. That is the difference between immigration and emigration. I hope that is clear to us all. Assignment today is question 1, identify the types of migration in Africa. Question 2, what are the factors influencing migration in Africa? I hope from what we have learned, you will be able to identify the types and the factors. And as we conclude this lesson, I hope you understand the meaning of migration, that is the movement of people from place to place, which started back then and is still continuing till today. I hope you also remember the types of migration and you can be able to identify each and every one of them. Factors that have led to this type of migration are many, including education, better living conditions, higher income. All these have led to the migration taking place, and I hope you can be able to give instances and examples where these factors have contributed to the types of migration. That marks the end of our lesson today. I am your teacher, Teacher Elmeldha. See you soon.